Welcome, everybody. There are two very important fundamental ideas that we're going to learn about right now. And that is with regards to language, how language works. And the reason why understanding how language works is important is because the creation of the world is a language, but we're inside God, just like ideas are inside a brain. And it's important to understand this because this helps us to be able to channel everything back to the oneness. If we understand how the division really is rooted in oneness, and we can better understand how Ein Od Milvado, how there's nothing else besides Hashem, which is a mitzvah of Hashem, Shema Yisrael, understand Israel, how Hashem, who's higher than nature, is your energy, and this same Hashem is one and only. So there's a mitzvah of understanding and connecting everything back to the oneness. So specifically what we're going to learn this week is we're going to learn that in order to make language, a person has to be able to connect things, symbols, and say that this symbol is going to represent something else, something totally different. This symbol, a certain symbol, is going to represent something else, or a certain sound is going to represent something else, or a certain letter is going to represent something else. So therefore, I'm going to sit a little further down. So therefore, that is important. But another skill that's important is the idea of being able to separate ideas. In order to make words, we need to be able to connect ideas that don't usually connect. There's no reason why these two things are connected. So to be able to have abstract thought, and animals, as far as I know, aren't able to do this. Maybe certain animals have been seen to use certain symbols or certain gestures, but generally animals cannot take random things and say that this random thing is going to represent something else, because you need to be able to do that in language. The other thing, you need to be able to divide. You need to be able to divide and then recreate, reposition everything back together. So the ability to divide is, we say, a mother lends her clothes to her daughter. Mother represents Bina, the mind of comprehension, and the daughter represents expression, speech. So the mother is who creates the idea of division. There are 5 powers of division. There are 5 letters in the Yiddish and the Hebrew alphabet that are final letters, means to say that they take a different form when they're at the end of the letter, which represents a division and a separation. They represent the 5 powers of division, which come from the comprehension brain, the brain of comprehension, which is the left brain, which is the brain of Bina, and that allows for division of thought. But what about symbolism? The idea of connecting, representing pictures or sounds to represent something else, which is totally different, totally separate. And there's no reason why this represents that. So that comes from the right brain. That is Abba Yisod Brata, the father is the foundation of the daughter. So the daughter represents the idea of communication, and the father represents the idea of insight. And insight allows for a blurring of borders in order to connect things that don't connect usually, in order to create a language and a code that will represent something else. That is, a father is the foundation of his daughter. So so in other words, there's 2 functions. And we're going to find out that something interesting happens, is the ability to divide actually does not come from the thought. It actually comes from the speech. It doesn't make sense because thought comes before speech. But a young child has thought, but is not able to divide his thought till they're able to speak. So it turns out it's such a wondrous thing that only when a person can speak do they get granted the ability to divide. So the lower level, which is speech, connects up to something really higher and allows for this wondrous thing of division of thought in order to make a understandable thought, a cohesive thought. You need to be able to divide. That only comes after 2 years old when the kid starts speaking. So we have I'm going to make this a little even, I'll see if I can make this even bigger. Get really comfortable. Okay, let's do this. Okay, now we're going to understand in the idea of the power that divides the various formations, connections of various letters. The machshava in thought. The madriga hagimel in the third level. What's the third level? Third level was meaning. First level is pictures. Second level is audio. The third level is meaning. When a person thinks about something, they use different mental frames, mental letters, mental words. From where is this power to divide a picture? It's known that the 5 focusing abilities called mansapach, which are the 5 letters, which take on a different form when they're at the end of a word. The aim of the mother, which is comprehension, bina, that is the power of the division. That is what powers division. It's the explanation of this matter. It's known the bechinas ema, that the idea of mother who bechinas bina vasaga. It's idea of detailed thought and comprehension, grasp. Hasaga means to reach something, to grasp. Erech means to deliver an idea, perhaps in a simplified form. To think about the details and the nuances of the idea. The hespedover, explaining something, hamuskal of the concept, of the intellectual concept. When a person goes into the core concept, delves into the core concept of this idea, it's only just depth of a focused thought canal. At this point in time, when a person's delving into the core concept, he's not dividing up words or letters. In his thought, in order to think about the idea, or to think about the idea, when a person's doing that, it's only core concept. There's no words. Because once a person goes through the process of delivering an idea and going to the nuances of the idea and comparing the nuances to each other to establish what's same and what's the difference and what's the core concept, there is no widening of words. There's actually less words. Like it's seen clearly. However, through the 5 gvuris, which is a focus, vistalkos, the idea of being able to leave an idea, just say this is enough. Vistalkos means which is in the ability of comprehension to say, well, that's enough. Atma, in an understanding, when a core concept goes down into a person's mind, and it comes down, and it comes into various ways, various words, pratis in very details, this ability to be able to divide an idea and to say, that's enough, that's enough. This is enough to be able to express the idea. These are the words, like Twitter. Twitter, you have to only use certain words. And you're not allowed to use any more words, right? So this is the idea of Haig versus Mansapach. You have to be able to deliver the idea in certain words. That's the 5 focusing abilities of Mansapach, the 5 letters. The Ema of the mother, which is the left brain, Shenikra Pesuche Chesem Chulu. So another code name for this is called the engraved letters that are engraved on the in the jewels, on the stones of the Kohen Gadol. Even though that a person is going to now define a certain words and limit the idea to those words, it's called going down. It's a tzimtzum. It's a very big focus. I'm not able to capture the length and breadth of the whole idea. But the source of to be able to limit yourself to certain words, actually, the root of that is higher than understanding. Higher than the understanding in the core concept hazeh. In other words, it's a greater skill than it's a greater skill than the ability of comprehension itself. Think about it. You can have certain animals that are very intelligent and can understand, let's say a fox. They can understand certain things in a very intelligent way. Nevertheless, they're not able to do this. They're not able to create a certain amount of words that are going to capture the idea. So it shows that this ability of creating words is something more even wondrous than the comprehension itself. And the proof to this is from what we see between a katan and a small child. He doesn't have yet different variations of letters in his mind, in his thoughts, but davar prati to anything specific, even into the thing that they give him something of that that the child considers valuable. Even though the child, like we mentioned last week, is able to recognize something of value and he wants to swap it for something of less value, that already shows an idea of a division of mind. But he's not able to divide up the idea in words. So some possibility of division, but he's not able to divide it into words. However, when he's able to request with his mouth something specific, then in his mind he definitely has different types of ways, different types of words of expressing the same thing. To that thing, prati, specific thing, that he's requesting bedavar, bedibur, with his words. And what happens is the different types of letters get divided in the thought, tchila first, terem boyam ledibur, before they even come into words. It's strange because only when he starts speaking, he gets this ability. But where does this actually happen in the mind, does the dividing? Like we're going to explain, this is a famous idea that we're going to speak about. And this famous idea is that the heels of Leah go into the head of Rachel. So we spoke about there's 2 types of women. There's a woman which is of like gadlus, which is the idea woman of thought, more of a teacher, more of a behind the scenes type of lady that organizes everything. And then there's the lady that's more in the public. She's communicating to the public. Women have 9 times more ability than men in being articulate. So the other woman is the articulate one. And in the divine creation, since we're all the words of God, these are the chariots of these ideas of God. Leah is the chariot to the thoughts of God, and Rachel is the chariot to the words of God, to the Shekhinah, to the divine presence, which is really God speaking. Rachel is a chariot and represents the idea of God speaking. And this is the two women, because these are feminine energies inside God. And how did these two energies interface? So we say that the heels of Leah go into the head of Rachel. In other words, the lowest level, Leah, is thought. Leah means even she's tired of thinking, like weary from all the thoughts. And Akev Leah would mean the lowest level of Leah. The lowest level of Leah, which is the conclusion of the thought of what should be delivered in words to be able to capture the idea that I'm thinking, and that goes into the head of Rachel, because that becomes the orders, basically, what you're going to say, what you should be speaking about. So that's how the Leah and Rachel interface, that the heels of Leah, the lowest level of meaningful thought, become the program that drives the Rosh Rachel, the head of Rachel, the head of expression. The Hainu Dibur Shema Hanal. This is thought that is words in thought. That's the lowest level, words in thought. But we're not thinking about the meaning, we're thinking about which words we're going to say. That becomes the thought that guides the actual words being made. The commercial like it's written in another place regarding the saying of the Zohar al-Pasuk on the verse, "V'kol ater nishma b'artzeinu." It's a famous statement from Shara Yichud. The voice of the dove is heard in our land, Dafka specifically. I was speaking with Rabbi Smith, and Rabbi Smith was pointing out that the Torah, the dove, represents the peace. The nations consider the dove peace. It also has the idea that it keeps the same partner, always remains faithful to the same partner. And what type of sound the dove makes? It makes a oo sound, oo, 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 a soft oo sound, and which represents the idea of a deep connection. And let's say you take that deep connection, which is this is the sphere of Yesod, actually. And then that sphere of connection gets interfaced with Malchus, which is expression, which is hinted by the words Artseinu, the land. The land is Malchus, because the Malchus is like, it grows everything on the land. So when we say Kalater Nishma Baratzenu, the voice of the dove is heard on the land, which that means that the voice of Yesod, of the sphere of Yesod, interfaces with Malchus and expresses the feelings and the deep connection in words. Dafka specifically, B'Vichinas Dibur, in a way of words. As Zman Hilchach, that's Azman. This is the time of his Chalkus Eisis HaMachshava, when the actual thought will be the letters chosen to express the thought will be chosen when there's that interface of emotion and Artenu and the land, and that's what's going to actually trigger the actual physical words. Painu inyan klolos amaimer de'ema uzifas derech sheila hegvuras matzabach lebrata. So this is a saying, a Kabbalistic saying, that the mother lends in a way of borrowing, derech sheila, in a way of lending, hegvuras, the 5 focusing powers of matzabach, of these finishing letters. There's only 5. Lebrata, to its daughter. The daughter represents malchus, expression. Basically, it lends the ability to divide up the letters of the speech instead of just being one long speech, which will be then animal noises, right? Animal noises would be just a noise that an animal can make. But with the 5 gvuris of Mansapach, the noises can be now divided up into something that's communicable. Imagine if animals could do Morse code. right? That already would be the Hegvurus, the five divisions of making a division in the voice. Now, all this is a proof that the ability to divide up these words and does not start in the thought itself. Because a child can tell the difference between good and bad, even before he's able to speak. Nevertheless, he doesn't have various letters in his mind until he's able to speak. Because only when he's able to speak, he's able to divide up things. So he's able to understand, but he's not able to speak. That means that speech, the vision of speech, is something higher than understanding. Again, if he's able to understand, and through his behavior, you know that he understands, nevertheless, he can't speak. That means that speech is something higher than intellect. It's actually the source of all deep understanding. These Hegvuris are the source of all big understanding. Now, the letters of speech, the power of the tziruf means to weld together, right? To put together, to weld together. Ma'aba, that comes from the Father. In other words, we're welding together the idea that this symbol is going to now represent this idea. So the idea of connecting things that don't usually connect is called the pnimis hachachma, is the inner part of insight. This is the actual power to think. The hachma, which comes from the right brain, insight, which is actually what precedes intellect. We're in New York. This is the sound of New York. So it precedes intellect. Binyan train siperin, like it says in a different place regarding to two birds. I'm going to explain it. So hold on. We're going to find out about the two birds. Even though the five gvuras of Mansapach divide up the ability to divide up words in words, kafi oifen hischalkus trufim sheba machshava mamish, and the division that comes from higher than seichel, higher than intellect, to be able to divide it up. It's but it follows the divisions in the thoughts from the five powers of division of the left brain. Nevertheless, the father is the foundation of the daughter to give her the ability to connect. You don't even intentionally connect these things. It just automatically, higher than seichel, two things become connected. That's the way, just accept it. And that is coming from the right brain. So you need both of these functions, the left brain and the right brain. Like it's written, it's actually written, he connects, welds together, connects insight. Like it's written in another place, and as I'm going to explain, so he is actually connecting the words, the thought, from the left brain. נמצא שגם בחינת הצירופים עצמם שבמחשבה על יודם בחינת צמצום במחשבה עיונית. It turns out that even the connections in the brain, in the thought, these connections of the thought, they allow deep thought, machshava yunis, deep thought, even though the deep thought doesn't have too many words connected to it, but it is allowed. Deep thought is only possible if you can connect things. Huba mikol makom, huba, it comes. Mikol makom, nevertheless, the power that makes this his chalkus and this division and connection. Nevertheless, this power is even higher than the comprehension in the left brain, because you can have comprehension before a child talks, but he's not able to have organized thought. That is the reason why a child cannot connect words in his thoughts until he's able to speak. Even though he understands the idea very well. So the difficulty sometimes with this dyslexia depends what it is. If it's just the right brain and right eye and left eye, like sometimes this one becomes dominant and sometimes the other one is dominant, and the brain doesn't know which one should be dominant, and therefore there's a slight difference between the angle in which the left and right eye look at a page, and therefore if it changes, the page could look like it's shaking, but it's not really shaking. It's just the right eye and left eye taking turns in how to look at the page, but then that's going to make the page shake. That's one form of dyslexia. Another one is that sometimes kid have a difficulty connecting two things that don't make sense. Like try to learn English spelling. Like a lot of people have problem with English spelling because it doesn't make sense. So you really need some magical Abba, you say brata, this the father is the foundation of the daughter to be able to spell in English. This that they say that a child doesn't have thought. It doesn't mean he doesn't have thought, because he's able to connect things, but he's not able to really divide them. So he doesn't have a organized thought that he organized. Because it has to come from the source of Bina, and the source of Bina is not triggered only through speech. The source of Bina is only triggered through speech. Only when he knows how to speak, that's when the source of Bina is triggered, and then the source of Bina provides the power of division to the thought, and then the power of the division of the thought gets borrowed to the daughter, the power of division of speech. Vidal, and whatever we said till now, it's enough. Lama, and this thing is one of the wondrous and hidden to us. Lama machshava kadma ledibur. How is it that thought comes before the speech? Hariyadibur shershe b'pnimius makar hachma. We find that the speech comes from the inner aspects of insight, of chachma, v'machshava, and thought. And thought really comes from the source of Bina. So in other words, that means it means organized thought. So you need to have both the pnimius hamokra chachma, the deep source of insight, and the deep source of comprehension of Bina, in order to have any sort of organized thought. And these things are only triggered once a person starts speaking. And also wondrous that Chachma comes before Bina. So why does Chachma come into the person only once they start speaking? Why is Chachma considered? Chachma is called the intangible, and Bina is already called the concrete. Chulu. And like it is written in the Indian of speech and say over. Amar is a more of a soft speech, and dibur is a hard speech. Dibur, it sounds harder, Marta. So it speaks hard and soft. So the thought is soft, it speaks. And the words that are expressed by speech are dibur, are more concrete. So it turns out that dibur is higher than vamarta. Vamarta, soft speech, which is the thought, is a lower level than dibur, which is the speech of the mouth. V'gam mizeh atzmei raya, and also from this is a proof. Mima she'ein amachshava ba behischalkus tzrufim ki im bevoi hischalkus adibur betinuk. Thought does not come with proper division until the child is able to speak. When they're able to divide words with speech, somehow this triggers the ability to divide ideas in the mind. Nevertheless, the five divisive powers of mansapach, of the left brain, davka specifically, sharish, lehegvuras, they are the source of the they are the source of the five gvuras needed to divide the words, the ema of the left brain, uzifas, because the mother borrows her clothes to the daughter, bita, like we say, that like the mother, like daughter, etc. And in this source, that the source of speech is in the inside right brain, and the source of thought is from the left brain. The source of speech, which is a lower level, comes from the right brain, and the source of speech is from the left brain. And that's why we say that specifically the father is the foundation of the daughter. Also the original source. The original source of thought and speech, the way they are in the core of the soul canal, like we've mentioned above. In other words, we said that thought and speech are already in the core of the soul. And that is a metaphor how everything, all the division we see in the world, is really in the essence of God. Canal Beis Lamed Zayin, we explained in chapter 37. And we explained there's three levels in the in revealed thought. Over there, you also have the thoughts. The letters of thought are of the core of the soul. Come before the letters of speech, which is called the spirit that talks, spirit communicating, that communicates. In a soul, inside a body, first comes thought and then comes speech. Beishanim, 2 years in advance. Okay. Thought comes 2 years in advance in a child. So also when a soul is put into a body, into a baby, a person is not considered a ruach mamalala, communicating breath for a certain amount of time. It takes 2 years, but it already has the ability to think. So basically what we're saying is something on top of the brick on top of the wall falls further away. The brick on top of the wall, higher in the wall falls further away. So too, when a child is born, the lower level is what manifests itself first. But then the higher brick, which falls lower into the child's speech, that manifests itself afterwards. So the higher power manifests itself afterwards. And that's why we say that only a person that is able to speak is able to have proper cognitive thought. This is because it's not considered, so it's only a dafka nefesh maskelas, a soul that thinks. A child, a baby is a soul that thinks. That's because it has insight. It has an essential insight. Shabahu kedem. That's why the babies learn. They're learning all the time. They're so busy. They're hyperactive learning and everything because it's a nefesh maskelas. It's a brain. It's a soul that thinks. It has an essential chachma, insight. Sheba shehu kedem machshava atzmi sheba. Shehu kedem machshava atzmi sheba. Which comes before thought. Why? Because insight comes before thought, but thought is already a system of expression. However, when it's revealed in the child, it actually manifests afterwards, as we explained in another place at great length, and whatever we said till now is enough for the understanding. And I hope you understand the complexity and in this process, and it's really going to help us understand. This is really going to help us understand how the world really works. You see, you have matter and you have energy, and energy behaves in a certain way. So every piece of matter is attached, is mitzuraf, is attached to a certain angel, which is commanded to behave in a certain way. For example, Malach Gabriel is the angel of fire, so he gets attached to some sort of to matter, and he's told, you have to make this combust. And Malach Machal is attached to water, and you have to make this flow and glue things together. There's no reason why why a certain piece of matter behaves this way or that behaves that way. It's just because Hashem connected those two together. And he could decide to make an alternate connection if he wanted to. We could ask for divine compassion if we need to, and he could change the tzirufim, change the attachments in order that the physical object should behave differently. Like, let's say if we need to fulfill a certain mitzvah and something standing in the possibility of doing that. Next week, we are going to learn a summary chapter. We said that chapter 33, chapter 43, and chapter 53 are summary chapters. So we're going to basically summarize in a holistic way everything we've been learning in the last nine chapters. I'm going to summarize it and put it all together in the next chapter next week. So stay tuned to chapter 43. It's going to be extremely significant because everything that we learned till now is going to be summarized. Have a good week. Have a good Shabbos.